The Bitcoin system is distributed public ledger technology with copies of a list of every transaction on computers all over the world. So you might think that everyone can see your Bitcoin balance and transactions, but exactly the opposite is true. The system has three nearly impenetrable layers of privacy. Let's see how this works. Bitcoins are passed along an ownership chain by coded messages that are digitally signed. Each digital signature is linked to the public key of the sender and recipient, which are in turn linked to their private keys. Only your private key can prove that you own the final address in that ownership chain, and that key is known only by you. Anyone who wants to send you Bitcoins doesn't just send them like an email. What they do is lock them up in a public math puzzle locker that can only be opened by the legitimate owner of your public key. The puzzle can only be solved and the locker opened with the public key of the person who can prove, using their private key, like a fingerprint, that they are the legitimate owner of that public key. Your private key links your identity to your public key without ever revealing your identity to anyone. Privacy can also be established at the IP address level. Every computer in the world can be identified with a unique Internet Protocol address. But if you access Bitcoin through a Tor network that hides your IP address, you can use Bitcoin without revealing anything more than your public key. The third level of privacy has to do with the transaction structure. In order to have enough Bitcoins in your transaction message, you may have to link the inputs of several transactions together. In this example, 6 transactions were used as sources to add up to enough Bitcoins. And despite the fact that all those inputs were sent to different addresses, they all became linked because the sender of this batch of Bitcoins had to prove that he owned all of those addresses by supplying the digital signature to unlock each one. To prevent anyone from linking your transactions together in this way, you can generate a new public key for each transaction. You might think that creating a public key address could create a link to your true identity, but even this step is anonymous and amazingly can be done with no connection to the network. You simply click a button in your wallet software and it randomly generates a new private and public key. Because the number of possible addresses is so huge, generating an identical address to someone else's is practically impossible. For an idea of just how big these numbers are, imagine if every grain of sand on Earth were a whole other Earth full of grains of sand. To randomly generate the exact same Bitcoin address would be like randomly picking the exact same grain of sand out of that entire universe of sand. Essentially a mathematical impossibility, like winning the lottery every day for the entire age of the universe. So your privacy in the Bitcoin system can be protected in 3 ways: encryption keys, IP addresses, and the law of large numbers.